Hey, this is us family. It's Kwana back again with another video. And if you are not aware, today were the announcements of the 2022 Emmy nominations. The Emmys will air in September, and I am here to regretfully inform the whole Pearson fam clan that our show did not get any love for the Emmys. And I guess this is going to be kind of a rant video, but also just kind of like a breakdown of like why I think that it got snubbed. And then later on, we'll talk a little bit about the shows that did get nominated. And you guys can let me know down in the comments how you're feeling about our favorite show getting snubbed. But then also if there were any shows that you particularly enjoyed from the nominations that you would like to see win, and if there were any that you would like for me to watch and maybe talk about on the channel. All right, so let's just go ahead and talk about it, okay? I'm going to start with this. I want to start with this article that breaks down all of the 19 cast member submissions. We're going to focus on the acting nominations. Okay. I'll talk a little bit about. All right, so first on this list for Best Drama Actor, we had, of course, Sterling K. Brown as Randall Pearson and Milo Ventimiglia as Jack Pearson. Now, I'm surprised but not surprised. Sterling K. Brown is an Emmy darling. He's an award show darling. He's won several accolades for his work on American Crime, the O.J. Simpson story, and then also for This Is Us. So in that regards, because he's already won an Emmy, sometimes when you've already won, it kind of can go, either way, because you have to remember that the people who are voting for the submissions are people who are in the Academy, and a lot of times they'll say, oh, this person doesn't need this award because they've already won this award. And if there's a lot of new blood that's out there that hasn't won, that might be why he didn't get the nomination. So I get it. I will say I'm not surprised that Milo didn't get the nomination. His presence in the season was very sporadic. He doesn't show up as frequently in the season. Of course, they find ways to always bring him into almost every episode. And of course, we had episode 3 that was very heavily focused on his character. But even a lot of fans kind of talked about how they didn't really feel as attached to that story arc because we were already well aware of his mother's passing. And it was a flashback that kind of felt disjointed from the timeline of how they had presented things in the show. And perhaps if they were like doing an episode arc right then and there where it was kind of mirroring in that moment what Rebecca was going through. I mean, the long game, yes, it's mirroring that, but in that moment, it really wasn't connected to the primary storyline. So if the people who are voting haven't had opportunity to watch every episode and they're only getting snippets of the actor's ability, they may have felt like it wasn't enough of a media role. And also for him being a lead actor, but his storyline is really in service to the other characters at this point, I can kind of see why he didn't get the nomination. It sucks because I really wish he would have won for season 2 or season 3 because I felt like those were stronger in regards to Jack, but here we go. I'm going to jump past actress for just a moment, but of course they did submit Mandy Moore as Best Drama Actress. We're going to talk about Mandy in a second because that's a whole nother conversation. For Best Drama Supporting Actor, they nominated Griffin Dunn for Nikki, Chris Greer for Philip, Justin Hartley for Kevin, John Huertas as Miguel, and Chris Sullivan as Toby. Now, 3 of those actors, in my opinion, don't feel like supporting actors in the show. With particularly to me, Chris Sullivan does not feel like, and neither does Justin Hartley, do they feel like supporting actors for This Is Us. They are lead actors. This Is Us is very much an ensemble. And everyone who is a primary person, Jack, Rebecca, Randall, Kevin, and Kate, they are the lead actors, in my personal opinion. So I think what happens sometimes is when you are trying to figure out what your actors will have a best chance of winning, they're going to be put in supporting actor because perhaps they feel like, well, we can kind of predict some of the big names that are going to go up, and maybe their storylines didn't produce enough of an emotional range, or their acting didn't produce enough of an emotional range in order to garner them a nomination. So this is why they might get placed in the supporting actor position. I feel like with Chris, one, I definitely would have submitted the scene where he and Kate are arguing either on the lawn, or the scene where they're completely like breaking down inside of the home. Or even perhaps the scenes with him at Thanksgiving. Those were really some amazing acting from Chris Sullivan. And I really do feel like just his acting from that and the range that those scenes, those argumentative scenes showed in his character, from the very happy-go-lucky, jovial Toby that we typically have gotten to know in the show, to then see him really wrestle with his emotions and really struggle, and perhaps even the Hill episode. I would have really liked to have seen him have gotten a nomination. Not to discredit Justin, and I certainly do think that John could have gotten something for the Miguel episode, but I feel like a lot of the Miguel episode, it was very much spliced together, and I don't think that Emmy voters particularly like that, because you don't get one strong moment. You get these connecting moments that feel more like the writing is good and less about what the actor is doing. But I would definitely have said that Chris should have gotten a nomination. I'm sorry. Argue about it with your mama. I'm so sorry about that. Okay, for Best Supporting Actress. Now, let's just talk about this before we even call out these names. Listen, there is no shade to anyone on this list, right? This is Us's last season. They wanted to go up for all of their actors. They wanted to show that they were supporting all their actors. So they pretty much gave everyone who was legally eligible for a nomination a submission into the nominations. And then that way no one could argue that their team wasn't being supported. Whether or not the Emmys chose them or not, that's on the Emmys, but the This Is Us team could say, we wanted to support our people. So when we look at this list of supporting actors, you've got Iris Baker as Tess. Tess did not have a storyline at all this season. There was no storyline for Tess at all this season. I think we've all talked about that there was no Tess. Tess pretty much served to help with Deja's storyline more than anything. And in that regard, the fact that Deja doesn't have a nomination and was not submitted is a little troubling, in my personal opinion. Yeah, I don't know another way to say that. Chrissy Metz as Kate. I just talked about the fact that Chrissy Metz, in my opinion, she is not a supporting actress. She is a lead actress in this series. But I definitely think that they felt like they could not put her up in the lead actress. And I think that they did not want to put her up in the lead actress opposite of Mandy, because I think that they were hedging their bets that Mandy was going to get a nomination. And I think we're going to go into that. So that's why I think we have Kate in this category. Chrissy is amazing. But there are times when I do feel like her acting feels more like her and less about the character. And so I think that's where sometimes if you are an Emmy voter, probably, I don't know these people in real life. I'm just thinking about how I feel sometimes about her acting. It's hard to tell when she's being her and when it feels like this is Chrissy's personality and when this is Kate. And so I think that kind of sometimes takes away from how strong her acting is. I think the same could be true for Sterling at times, which is why I also think probably he didn't get the nomination again, because he already won once. It was very refreshing to see that kind of vulnerability play on the screen. But I think now people are like, this is also Sterling's personality and not just Randall. And so, no, we're not going to give him the nomination. Susan Kelechi Watson. I can definitely see why. In a Best Drama Supporting Actress role, she would not get a nomination. And it sucks, because I do think that she is such a breath of fresh air on this show. There are times when her presence in the show is so strong, so palpable, it shifts the air. And that's a nod to the writing for her character, but also to Susan. But I just think that in a drama, because a lot of her role is very inspirational, very motivational, very comedic at times. I think it's very hard sometimes for someone who has that kind of role and that kind of presence in the show to then get a nomination in a Best Drama Supporting Actress. So I think that's why. And then Hannah Zille as Teen Kate. Again, she wasn't very prevalent in this season as well, so I definitely could see where maybe last season she had a stronger storyline with the whole pregnancy scare, that kind of thing. This season, not so much. For Best Drama Guest Actor, you had Dule Hill as Kenny for The Train, Ron Cephas Jones as William Hill for The Train, and Tim Matheson as Dave Malone for Taboo. I love Dule Hill. He's one of my favorite people. If you go back and watch the Train episode, I talk about him. If you watch, if you've watched my channel for any length of time, I adore Ron Cephas Jones. Heck, I love his daughter too, him and Jasmine. But William's character wasn't really strong in the Train in terms of we didn't get to spend time and he didn't shift the plot. He was just there to usher Rebecca through, and oftentimes he disappeared into the background while she was encountering her feelings and her emotions and her memories. So I definitely could see why he would not get a nomination for that. Again, also, they probably feel as though he just very recently, a few years back, 2 years ago, won an Emmy. He and Jasmine won the same year, and so he doesn't need an Emmy, and then this wasn't a strong season for him. And then Dule Hill for the guest actor. I just think up against some of the other guest actors for the show, he was great. His character was great. The connection between him and Jack was amazing, but we really didn't get to see that character fleshed out, and which is kind of interesting because this has done some standalone episodes where they spent way more time on auxiliary characters. And I think a lot of us felt like, even with regards to how nice that storyline was with the whole doctor thing and the drugs for the Alzheimer's and things like that, a lot of fans felt like it took away from the episode. They wanted to spend more time with the Pearsons because it was right at the end. And then other people, like me, didn't mind it and loved seeing Dule Hill on our screen again, but it also didn't have a big enough impact to the main storyline. So for that reason, I could kind of see him not getting the nomination as well. And Tim Matheson, I barely remember that episode. So yes, if you particularly liked that episode and you felt like his performance was great, let me know down below in the comments. I'll go back and look back at the episode again because I barely remember that episode. And then we have Best Guest Actress, Alexandra Breckenridge as Sophie for The Night Before the Wedding, Jim Morrison as Cassidy Sharp for The Guitar Man, Laura Niemi as Marilyn Pearson for Don't Let Me Keep You, and Day Young as Sally Brooks for One Giant Leap. Listen, Alexandra, I love Alexandra. She's a good actress. I really enjoyed her on The Walking Dead. I don't love her as Sophie, so I can't go up big for her. And I also just felt like the night of the wedding, it wasn't one of my favorite episodes at all. I really felt like they were just kind of dragging us along this journey that didn't feel like it was really going to go anywhere. And it's like, okay, great, yeah, they ended up together, but you guys know how I feel about that. Jennifer Morrison, again, I love Jennifer Morrison between House and Once Upon a Time. I love her. I don't love her acting on This Is Us. I tolerate her acting on This Is Us. She's one of those people that, because of the way that she emotes and the way that she talks and her mouth sits, it's kind of hard to feel like connected to her sometimes when she's acting. And I have that same kind of criticism for oh my gosh, Meredith Grey, Ellen Pompeo. I kind of feel like Ellen Pompeo does the same thing, like the way her mouth sits when she speaks, that it's really hard to connect with her as a character. And I feel like that's the same thing with Cassidy, although I love the Guitar Man episode. And that scene with her in the hospital bed kind of going in with Kevin and things like that. I thought that that was a great scene, but we didn't get enough of that. And I think that if they sat with her interactions with Kevin a bit more even in that episode, that would have maybe given her a nomination. So yeah. I also don't think anyone was buzzing about any of these guest spots. And usually when you have someone who is going to get a guest appearance nomination, people have been buzzing about that performance. And I just don't think anybody was buzzing about any of these performances. Laura Linney as Marilyn Pearson, I kind of could have seen that. I could have seen that have gotten a guest actress, and I think probably out of all of these picks, she probably, if I was to creep back into a back room and hear some of the discussions, I would imagine that she probably was in discussions because she was really good on that episode, really was. And then Dae Young as Sally Brooks for One Giant Leap. I think I was just so upset initially that, you know, the whole Sally and Nikki thing didn't work out. I mean, I'm glad for who he ended up with, but it was just so kind of like weird that we got so much of that episode for just not to pan out. But I also think that aside from the interaction that she has with Rebecca, it didn't really move me greatly. So those are all of the actor nominations or the submissions that were made and my thoughts on why they were snubbed. So I'm going to spend these last few minutes, and I know we've kind of been here for a little bit, but you know, this is what we're here for. This is us. This is kind of our last chance as fans to talk about the show and to get our feelings out. But let's talk about what we're here to talk about, which is the snub for Mandy, and the one that I think is going to really be the most upsetting is because, one, I think for me, and I think for a lot of fans, we felt like this was the season where they kind of really got Rebecca right. Like all the parts of her going from, you know, the younger years to the older years, they figured out her look and her transitions a bit better. But then the Thanksgiving episode, particularly the Thanksgiving episode, I thought when she's sitting down with the big three and she's talking to them about what she wants to have happen when she's gone, that was such a powerful moment in TV, talking about what she wanted from them, how she wanted them to live life and embrace it, what she was afraid of, the fears, the process of just the whole season of exposing what it's like to go through this debilitating disease and kind of lose your sense of self and lose yourself of those that you love. I thought that she portrayed it with such nuance, such grace. Even the wedding, the day of the wedding episode, I mean, really just on all cylinders, I really felt like Mandy was hitting it out of the park all season long. So for her not to get the nomination, it does to me feel like a snub. Because of the length of time, I'm probably going to wait and not go into everyone just right now, even though I initially said that I would. But let's just talk about one quick thing that I feel like when we look at the list, of who got the Best Actress, right? Jodie Comer for Killing Eve, Laura Linney for Ozark, Melanie Lynskey for Yellow Jackets, Sandra Oh for Killing Eve, Reese Witherspoon for The Morning Show, and Zendaya for Euphoria. Those are all highly charged, highly emotional shows, and they're gritty shows. And I definitely think that voters are now leaning more towards that. And This Is Us is not gritty, it's more wholesome. I think perhaps if they had leaned a little bit more into like the raw emotions of it all and spent more time lingering on that, perhaps she would have gotten it. But I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I have seen Killing Eve very sporadically. It's a show that it's been very hard for me to really sustain and get into. I did watch Euphoria. I do not review Euphoria on this channel because as a teacher, it is really weird for me to watch that show and really uncomfortable. And maybe one day I will do a video talking about that. Reese Witherspoon, I like her in the morning show. I don't feel like it's the best show that I've seen her in. And so with only 6 spots, I definitely felt like there was space on this list. And I do think Melanie Lynskey was really good in Yellow Jackets. Even though the show didn't end as strongly as, to me, it started, I thought she was really good. And so I would have loved to have seen Mandy Moore, perhaps where Reese Witherspoon is in that spot. And I just really would have thought that, you know, being that she's not gotten a win and it's been 6 seasons, and sometimes when we talk about this with the Oscars too, voters vote for who they think needs the win. I can't help but wonder if, because she is also a singer, if that has somehow, I don't know, made people feel like, well, she has these 2 careers and these 2 talents, and so she doesn't need it as much. But I don't know, I'm very highly disappointed. I'm trying to like not be like livid, but I'm really disappointed that they did not give her the nomination. What I do hope is this: I hope that perhaps there will be an opportunity for her to get a nomination for a Golden Globe, and that perhaps there will be an opportunity for the cast to get some SAG awards. Because I do think that the last season aired in enough time to where they'll be able to get those awards as well, or nominations at least, in the next season. But those are my thoughts about our show being snubbed for the Emmys. What are your thoughts? I want to know how you're feeling down below. I'm going to post a link to the list so that you can go to Emmys.com and see this list of all of the nominations. I think from what I've seen so far, it looks like Severance and Succession really kind of swept the Emmys this time around. Ted Lasso is also gotten a whole lot of nominations, Barry, and then Abbott Elementary. Abbott Elementary is a show that I watched in real time. I did not do reviews on this channel, but I am going to probably drop a Abbott Elementary video because I have a unique perspective being a teacher. And if you have watched that show and you're interested, especially interested in me perhaps reviewing it and watching it in real time next season, comment down below and let me know, okay, how you're feeling about that, okay? So let me know down below if there's any shows from the list that you would like for me to talk about, and perhaps I'll come back and I'll do a full-on nomination review. All right, guys, so that is it for how the Emmys completely did our show dirty. I don't want to say Emmys are trash, because there were definitely some shows that I was very proud that they did nominate, but I'm just very sad for our This Is Us family, because, you know, these wins do help them get future work. So that is all I have for you guys for this video. Let me know down below in the comments. Let's stay connected. Let me know what you guys are watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Toodles.